When Prince Emeka rejected every beautiful maiden chosen by Oduma tradition and shocked the kingdom by choosing Mmesoma, a poor, dirty charcoal seller, the gods themselves were forced to decide between tradition and true love. But as jealous Adaure and the corrupt chief priest plotted against them, Emeka risked losing his throne, his kingdom, and even his life for the woman nobody believed deserved to be queen. In a land where disobeying the gods meant death, could love survive the wrath of Oduma kingdom? Thunder rolled across the skies of Oduma kingdom like the angry growl of ancestral spirits. The ancient kingdom stood proudly between thick forests and sacred rivers, feared by neighboring villages because of one thing. The traditions of Oduma were not ordinary customs. They were laws sealed by the gods. From birth to death, every citizen of Oduma lived carefully, knowing that the gods watched every step taken upon the soil of the land. Children grew up hearing terrifying stories of men struck mad for stealing sacred yams from the shrine. Women whispered about a hunter who mocked the gods and was later found lifeless beneath the evil forest. Even titled elders trembled before tradition. In Oduma, power meant nothing before the gods, and among all the traditions passed from one generation to another, none was greater than the sacred marriage ritual of the crown prince. No prince could ascend the throne without the gods choosing his wife. It had remained unchanged for centuries, and now the burden rested upon Prince Emeka. The death of King Odogu had left Oduma kingdom drowning in sorrow. The mighty king had ruled with wisdom and strength. Under his reign, farms flourished, trade increased, enemies feared Oduma, and despite his wealth and authority, King Odogu was known for loving only one woman deeply, the Queen Mother. People admired their marriage. The king never humiliated her publicly, never took another wife despite pressure from elders. They ruled together like two souls tied by destiny. Prince Emeka had watched them closely while growing up, and secretly he prayed his own marriage would be like theirs. But the closer his coronation approached, the more fear consumed him, because Emeka understood something many princes ignored. A bad wife could destroy an entire kingdom. One evening, the palace courtyard remained unusually quiet as servants lit oil lamps along the royal corridors. Prince Emeka sat alone beneath the moonlight, staring at the giant statue of his late father. His face looked troubled. The Queen Mother approached slowly, dressed in black mourning cloth. "You sit here every night," she said softly. Emeka forced a faint smile. "I miss him." "So do I." The Queen Mother sat beside him. For several moments, neither of them spoke. Then Emeka finally broke the silence. "Mother, were you afraid before marrying father?" The Queen Mother looked surprised. "Afraid?" "Yes, afraid he may not truly love you." The older woman smiled faintly. "Love is not built in one day, my son." Emeka lowered his eyes. "What if I marry the wrong woman?" The Queen Mother studied him carefully. "You fear betrayal." He nodded slowly. "The women competing for the ritual, they smile too much. Their words sound too sweet. I cannot tell who is genuine anymore." The Queen Mother sighed deeply. "Your father once told me something before he died." Emeka looked at her.
"He said beauty can attract a man," she whispered, "but only character can keep peace inside a home." Those words remained inside Emeka's mind long after the Queen Mother left. That night, he made a dangerous decision. 3 weeks before the sacred ritual, Prince Emeka secretly abandoned the palace, disguised as an ordinary villager. No royal guards, no expensive clothing, no horsemen. He wore rough wrappers and dusty sandals. Even his royal beads were hidden. He wanted to discover the truth himself, not the polished lies presented before elders, not rehearsed humility, not fake smiles. He wanted reality. And so the prince entered the village unnoticed. Oduma market was alive with noise and movement. Women shouted prices. Children chased goats through narrow paths. Palm wine drinkers argued loudly beneath bamboo sheds. Smoke rose from roasting yam stands. Yet among the chaos, one person strangely caught Emeka's attention. A young woman seated beside several bags of charcoal. Her skin glistened beneath the harsh sun. Her fingers were darkened by charcoal dust. Her wrapper looked old and patched repeatedly. But despite her poverty, there was dignity in the way she carried herself. At that moment, 2 angry women nearby began fighting over customers. "You stole my buyer, you liar!" One woman grabbed the other violently. People gathered instantly. But before the fight escalated, the charcoal seller stood up. "Enough!" she shouted firmly. The women froze. "Must poverty turn us into animals?" she continued angrily. "Tomorrow another customer will come." The women slowly released each other. Prince Emeka watched with surprise. Most villagers feared interfering in public fights. But this poor charcoal seller spoke boldly without fear. Intrigued, he walked toward her stand. "How much for 1 bag?" he asked casually. The girl glanced at him briefly. "That depends." "Depends on what?" "Whether your face is honest." Emeka blinked, then suddenly burst into laughter. The girl folded her arms. "What is funny?" "No one speaks to me like this. That means people fear you too much," she replied. The prince became speechless. Nobody had ever answered him so directly before. "What is your name?" he asked. "Mmesoma." "And yours?" Emeka hesitated briefly. "Chike," a false name. Yet somehow hearing her say it made him strangely uncomfortable. Days turned into weeks, and Prince Emeka kept returning. Sometimes he bought charcoal, sometimes roasted corn, sometimes nothing at all. He simply sat beside her while she talked. Mmesoma knew nearly every family in Oduma. She heard market gossip daily, knew hidden secrets, understood people's true characters, and unknowingly she became Emeka's greatest source of information. "That girl contesting for queen?" Mmesoma scoffed one afternoon. "She insulted her own father publicly last planting season." Emeka frowned. "She did?" "Yes, because he refused to buy her expensive coral beads." Another day, Mmesoma shook her head bitterly. "These girls do not love the prince. They love the throne." Emeka stared carefully at her. "How can you tell?" "Simple," she replied calmly. "People chasing power always pretend too much." The prince felt chills. Her words pierced deeply. Then one evening, she leaned closer and lowered her voice. "One of the contestants secretly visits the chief priest at night." Emeka narrowed his eyes. "What for?" Mmesoma laughed bitterly. "To offer her body if he helps the gods choose her."
The prince froze completely. Disgust filled him instantly. Yet after secretly investigating, he discovered every accusation was true. Each revelation shattered his trust further. Some contestants secretly dated multiple men. Some abused servants. Some practiced manipulative rituals. Others despised poor villagers openly. And slowly, Prince Emeka's admiration for Mmesoma deepened. Because unlike them, she never pretended to be perfect. She spoke honestly, lived humbly, and cared deeply for people, despite her suffering. One rainy afternoon, heavy clouds covered the skies unexpectedly. Villagers ran for shelter. Mmesoma struggled desperately to protect her charcoal from the rain. Without thinking, Emeka rushed to help her. Together, they dragged heavy bags beneath a wooden shed. Rain poured violently around them. Their clothes became soaked. Breathing heavily, Mmesoma suddenly laughed. "You are not strong like a farmer." Emeka smiled. "And you are too stubborn."
Their eyes met briefly. Something shifted. A strange silence surrounded them. Then softly, Mmesoma spoke. "You are different from other men." Emeka's heartbeat quickened. "How?" "You listen before speaking." The prince stared at her silently. Nobody, not even palace maidens, had ever noticed something so simple about him. For the first time in years, he felt seen. But unknown to Mmesoma, danger was already growing inside the palace. The elders worried because Prince Emeka avoided royal meetings. The chief priest complained constantly, and the contestants grew desperate. Some bribed servants, some secretly visited shrines at midnight, others spread lies against fellow competitors. Everyone wanted the crown. Everyone wanted to become queen. Yet while the kingdom prepared joyfully for the sacred ritual, Prince Emeka's heart had already begun betraying tradition, because he had fallen deeply in love with the one woman Oduma would never accept, a poor charcoal seller. Finally, the sacred day arrived. The entire kingdom gathered at the market square, decorated with palm fronds and ancestral symbols. Drums thundered loudly. Traditional dancers spun wildly. The contestants appeared dressed like goddesses in glittering wrappers and coral beads. Villagers cheered excitedly. Then the chief priest raised his sacred staff. "Prince Emeka," he announced powerfully, "step forward and choose the 3 maidens worthy before the gods make final declaration." Silence fell instantly. Prince Emeka slowly stood. His royal attire shimmered beneath the sunlight, but his expression remained cold. Then suddenly he spoke words that shook the entire kingdom. "My people," he declared loudly, "none of these women shall become my wife." The crowd gasped in horror. The elders rose angrily. The chief priest nearly dropped his staff, and Prince Emeka began exposing secrets one after another, calling names publicly, revealing hidden affairs, bribery, immorality, manipulations, even the girl who seduced the chief priest. Fear spread everywhere. Parents trembled. Contestants burst into tears. "If I lie," Emeka thundered, "let any of them swear before the gods." But none moved. None dared challenge him. Then suddenly, the prince pointed toward the marketplace entrance. "My heart has chosen another." The crowd turned sharply, and there stood Mmesoma, frozen in fear, beside her basket of charcoal. The entire kingdom erupted into chaos. The charcoal girl? Sacrilege! Impossible! Mmesoma's breathing became shaky.
Her eyes locked onto the prince, and suddenly she recognized him. The stranger called Cheek, the man she unknowingly trusted, the man she had unknowingly fallen for, was Prince Emeka. And at that very moment, Oduma Kingdom stood on the edge of a dangerous storm, because no prince had ever dared challenge the gods before, and the gods of Oduma were never known to forgive rebellion. What do you think will happen next? Will the gods accept Mmesoma as the prince's chosen wife, or will Prince Emeka's love bring destruction upon Oduma Kingdom? Subscribe, share this emotional royal drama, and drop your answer in the comments, because the next chapter will reveal whether love is truly stronger than tradition. The marketplace exploded into confusion. Women screamed. Elders shouted angrily. The royal guards tightened their grip on their spears as villagers pushed against one another, trying to catch a clearer view of the charcoal seller who had suddenly become the center of Oduma Kingdom's greatest scandal. Mmesoma stood frozen. Her heart pounded violently against her chest. The basket of charcoal beside her had already fallen, scattering black dust across the ground, but she could barely notice it. All she saw was Prince Emeka walking toward her, before the eyes of the entire kingdom. The same man who sat beside her under the hot afternoon sun. The same man who laughed with her like an ordinary villager. The same man she trusted. The same man she unknowingly gave her heart to. He stopped directly before her, and without fear, he held her trembling hand. Gasps erupted everywhere. The chief priest staggered backward in disbelief. "This is abomination!" one elder shouted. "A prince cannot marry a charcoal seller," another yelled. "She is not fit for the throne." Mmesoma tried pulling her hand away gently, but Emeka held it firmly. For the first time in her life, she felt hundreds of eyes burning into her skin. Hatred, shock, disgust, jealousy. She could almost hear their thoughts. How could a poor village girl suddenly stand where royal maidens failed? The chief priest slammed his staff violently against the ground. "Prince Emeka!" he thundered. "Have you lost your senses?" But Emeka's voice remained calm. "No. You dare insult the sacred traditions of Oduma before the gods?" "I insult no tradition," Emeka replied firmly. "I seek truth." The elders erupted angrily again. One old man pointed toward Mmesoma with trembling fingers. "She is dirty!" Another spat on the ground. "She sells charcoal like a common laborer." A woman screamed bitterly from the crowd. "What does she know about royalty?" Tears filled Msesoma's eyes instantly. Never had she felt so small, so ashamed. She lowered her face, wishing the earth would open and swallow her whole. But suddenly, Prince Emeka stepped protectively before her. "Enough!" he roared. Silence fell immediately. The authority in his voice sounded exactly like his late father. The prince turned slowly toward the crowd. "You mock her because she is poor," he said. "Yet this same woman possesses more honor than many daughters of wealthy homes." His words struck deeply. Even the queen mother stared at him in shock. The chief priest narrowed his eyes dangerously. "The gods already established the qualities required of a future queen," he warned. "Beautiful, fair-skinned, noble by blood, a true daughter worthy of the throne."
Emeka looked directly at him. "And where did the gods say she must be rich?" The crowd became silent again. The chief priest's face darkened instantly. Mmesoma's legs trembled as whispers spread through the marketplace like wildfire. Some villagers mocked her openly. Others looked at her with pity. A few secretly admired her courage. But most feared what would happen next, because everyone knew one thing about Oduma traditions: the gods did not tolerate rebellion. The chief priest slowly lifted his staff again. "Prince Emeka," he declared coldly, "you have spoken boldly before the gods today, but traditions older than your birth cannot be broken because of emotions." Emeka's jaw tightened. "This is not ordinary emotion. Then what is it?" The prince looked toward Mmesoma. For several seconds he said nothing. Then softly, "It is peace." Those words instantly reminded the queen mother of King Odogwu. Her eyes widened emotionally. Even the elders became quiet briefly. But the chief priest refused to soften. "You shame the throne," he snapped. "This girl was not among the chosen maidens prepared for the sacred ritual." "Because nobody considered her worthy," Emeka answered sharply. "Yet she possesses honesty, wisdom, compassion, and dignity." One elderly woman scoffed loudly. "She sells charcoal." "And what is wrong with honest labor?" Emeka fired back. The crowd murmured uneasily. Nobody had ever seen a prince speak this way publicly against the elders. Tension thickened in the air. Then suddenly, one of the rejected contestants stepped forward angrily. Her name was Adaure, beautiful, elegant, and known throughout Oduma for her dazzling appearance. But now hatred burned inside her eyes. "So this is why you humiliated us publicly," she shouted bitterly at Emeka. "Because of this filthy girl." Mmesoma lowered her head painfully. Adaure marched closer. "You think she is innocent?" she sneered. "She manipulated you." "That is enough," Emeka warned coldly. But Adaure ignored him. "She planned this from the beginning. Look at her. She pretended to be humble while seducing the prince secretly." The crowd erupted again. Mmesoma's lips trembled. "No," she whispered weakly. "I did not know." "Liar!" Adaure screamed. Before anyone could react, she slapped Mmesoma hard across the face.
The sound echoed through the marketplace. The crowd gasped. Mmesoma stumbled backward in shock, but before Adaure could attack again, Prince Emeka grabbed her wrist fiercely. "Do not ever touch her again." His voice was terrifyingly calm. Adaure's confidence shattered instantly. The prince released her slowly. "You seek the throne," he said coldly, "yet you cannot control your anger before the kingdom." Ashamed, Adaure burst into tears and ran into the crowd. That evening, the royal council gathered urgently inside the palace. The atmosphere was heavy with anger. Oil lamps flickered against the walls as elders argued loudly. "This marriage cannot happen. The gods will punish Oduma. The prince is blinded by love." The chief priest sat silently at the center, his expression unreadable. Finally, the Queen Mother spoke. "What if the gods truly accept the girl?" The elders turned toward her in shock. One elder frowned deeply. "Your Majesty, even entertaining such thought is dangerous." But the Queen Mother remained calm. "My late husband taught me something important," she said quietly.
"Sometimes truth appears where pride refuses to look." The room became silent, briefly. Then the chief priest finally spoke. "There is only one way to settle this matter." Everyone looked toward him. "The gods themselves must decide." Meanwhile, far away from the palace, Mmesoma sat alone outside her small hut, crying quietly. The moonlight illuminated her tear-stained face. Everything had changed within a single day. Her peaceful life was gone. Now the entire kingdom hated her, feared her, judged her, and worst of all, she felt betrayed. Footsteps approached slowly. She looked up. Prince Emeka stood there. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Mmesoma finally whispered painfully, "You lied to me." Emeka lowered his head. "Yes, you made me trust you." "I know." Tears rolled down her face again. "Why?" The prince stepped closer, slowly. "Because I needed someone to speak truth without fearing my title." Mmesoma shook her head bitterly. "You should have told me." "I wanted to," he admitted softly, "many times." Silence filled the night air. Then Emeka spoke again. "Mmesoma, I love you." Her heart tightened instantly. "I did not plan it," he continued quietly, "but somewhere between your honesty and your kindness, I found peace." Mmesoma closed her eyes painfully. "No," she whispered, "this cannot happen." "Why?" "Because I am not meant for your world." Emeka moved closer. "You are exactly the woman I want beside me." "You do not understand," she cried. "The kingdom will never accept me." "Then let them fight me." "The gods?" she asked fearfully. "Will you fight them too?" Those words pierced deeply. For the first time since the marketplace incident, fear crossed Prince Emeka's face, because despite his boldness, even he feared the wrath of Oduma gods. The next morning, giant royal drums echoed across the kingdom. Villagers gathered immediately. The chief priest appeared before the crowd, dressed in sacred white robes. His voice thundered across the square. "The gods shall decide the fate of Prince Emeka and Mmesoma." Silence fell instantly. "In 7 days," the chief priest continued, "the sacred trial of acceptance shall take place inside the forbidden shrine, deep within the evil forest." Fear spread everywhere. People whispered anxiously, because everyone knew the terrifying truth about the sacred trial. No one who failed the gods ever returned unchanged. Some returned mad, some blind, some never returned at all. And now, a poor charcoal seller was about to stand before the gods of Oduma Kingdom, while deep inside the shadows of the crowd, Someone smiled wickedly. Adaure. Her eyes burned with jealousy and revenge. "If I cannot become queen," she whispered bitterly, "then Mmesoma will never live to wear that crown." And unbeknownst to Prince Emeka and Mmesoma, a deadly conspiracy had already begun. Fear swallowed Oduma Kingdom. From the palace corridors to the noisy marketplace, everyone spoke about only one thing: the sacred trial of acceptance. The gods themselves would decide whether Mmesoma, the poor charcoal seller, was worthy to become the future queen of Oduma Kingdom. And nobody slept peacefully anymore, because the sacred trial was not ordinary. It was a ritual feared even by warriors, a spiritual judgment performed inside the forbidden shrine deep within the evil forest, where the ancestors of Oduma were believed to dwell. People said spirits walked there at night. Some claimed they heard invisible voices whispering among the trees.
Others swore no bird dared sing near the shrine after sunset. Yet in 7 days,
Mmesoma would enter that terrifying place, alone. Inside her small hut, sleep abandoned Mmesoma completely. She sat quietly near the firewood flames, while her elderly mother watched her with worried eyes. "You should run away," her mother whispered fearfully. Mmesoma looked up slowly.
"Run?"
"Yes." The old woman's voice trembled. "This matter has become bigger than us. Royal matters destroy poor people first." Mmesoma lowered her head. Part of her wanted to disappear, to escape the hatred, the gossip, the fear. But another part of her remembered Prince Emeka's eyes when he confessed his love. For the first time in her life, someone had seen value in her beyond poverty. Not pity, not mockery, love. Real love. Tears gathered in her eyes. "What if the gods reject me?" she whispered painfully. Her mother moved closer and held her hands. "My daughter," she said softly, "sometimes people use the gods to hide their wickedness." Those words stayed in Mmesoma's heart long after her mother slept. Meanwhile, inside the palace, Prince Emeka was preparing for war, not against another kingdom, but against tradition itself. The elders had already begun turning against him openly. Servants whispered behind his back. Even some palace guards doubted him. Only the Queen Mother stood beside him. That night, Emeka sat alone inside his father's old chamber, staring at the royal crown. The weight of responsibility crushed him heavily. Suddenly, the door opened quietly. The Queen Mother entered. "You have not eaten," she said gently. "I am not hungry." She sat beside him silently. Then, after a long pause, she asked, "Do you truly love her?" Emeka answered without hesitation, "Yes." The Queen Mother nodded slowly. "Then prepare yourself." "For what?" "To lose everything." Those words pierced him deeply. "The elders may reject you," she continued softly. "The people may turn against you. If the gods reject the girl, your claim to the throne could disappear forever." Emeka clenched his fists tightly. "I do not care about the throne." "But you must care about Oduma." Silence filled the room. The Queen Mother touched his shoulder gently. "Love is powerful, my son, but tradition can be crueler than hatred." As the days passed, tension spread throughout the kingdom. Women gathered at rivers discussing Mmesoma endlessly. Some mocked her. Others secretly admired her courage. Young girls prayed desperately never to face such public judgment. Meanwhile, Adaure's jealousy had become poisonous. Since the day Prince Emeka rejected her publicly, bitterness consumed her completely. She could not bear hearing villagers mention Mmesoma's name. One evening, Adaure secretly visited the chief priest's compound. Her face was covered with a dark wrapper. The chief priest frowned when he saw her. "You should not be here."
Adaure stepped closer, desperately. "You must stop this madness. The gods will decide." "No," she snapped angrily. "If that girl becomes queen, Oduma will laugh at us forever." The chief priest remained silent. Adaure lowered her voice carefully. "There must be another way." The old priest's eyes narrowed suspiciously. "What are you suggesting?" Adaure leaned closer. "Make sure the gods reject her." The chief priest's expression darkened instantly. "You dare corrupt sacred judgment?" Adaure quickly brought out a small leather bag filled with gold ornaments. "Please," she whispered, "do this, and more will come." The chief priest stared silently at the gold.
His breathing slowly deepened. Temptation entered his heart. Finally, the 7th day arrived. Oduma Kingdom woke before sunrise. The atmosphere felt heavy and unnatural. Even the wind blowing through the trees seemed restless. Villagers gathered silently as royal guards escorted Mmesoma toward the forbidden shrine. She wore plain white cloth without ornaments. No makeup, no coral beads, no royal decorations. Yet strangely, she looked beautiful, not because of luxury, but because of purity. Prince Emeka walked beside her, despite elders protesting angrily. "You cannot enter the shrine with her," one elder shouted. "She must face the gods alone." Emeka looked toward Mmesoma reluctantly. Fear shone inside her eyes. He gently held her hands. "No matter what happens," he whispered, "you are not alone." Tears filled Mmesoma's eyes instantly. Then slowly, the shrine gates opened. A chilling silence swept across the forest. The chief priest stepped forward, wearing sacred white robes stained with ritual chalk. "The gods await judgment," he announced powerfully. Drums echoed slowly. Mmesoma's heart pounded violently as she stepped inside the shrine. The giant gates closed behind her immediately. Darkness surrounded her. The air inside smelled of burnt herbs and ancient wood. Sacred statues stood around the shrine like silent watchers. Mmesoma trembled. Then suddenly, a loud voice echoed, "Kneel before the gods of Oduma." She quickly fell to her knees. The chief priest stood before the sacred fire holding a calabash. His face looked cold and unreadable. "You stand accused," he declared loudly, "of attempting to break sacred tradition and pollute the royal bloodline of Oduma." Mmesoma's lips trembled. "I never asked for this," she whispered tearfully. "But you accepted the prince's love." "I did not know who he was." The chief priest moved closer slowly. "If the gods reject you today, your punishment shall be severe." Fear tightened around her chest. Then suddenly, the chief priest secretly poured dark powder into the sacred fire, a dangerous substance meant to create false signs of rejection. Adaure's bribe had already corrupted him. The fire instantly turned black. Gasps erupted from the elders watching outside through ritual openings. "The gods are angry. She has been rejected." Mmesoma's body shook violently. Tears streamed down her face. "No," she whispered painfully. Outside the shrine, Prince Emeka heard the commotion and forced his way forward angrily. "What is happening?" "The gods reject her," an elder shouted triumphantly. But suddenly, a violent wind exploded across the shrine. The sacred fire rose unnaturally high. The chief priest staggered backward in fear. Then something terrifying happened. The black flames suddenly changed into brilliant golden fire. The entire shrine shook violently. The calabash slipped from the chief priest's hands and shattered. Thunder roared across the skies, and before everyone's eyes, the sacred staff of Oduma fell directly before Mmesoma. Silence. Absolute silence. The elders stared in horror. The chief priest collapsed to his knees trembling. Because according to Oduma tradition,
The sacred staff falling before someone was the highest sign of divine acceptance. The gods themselves had spoken. Mmesoma had been chosen. Outside, villagers erupted into confusion and disbelief. The gods accepted her! A charcoal seller! Impossible!
Prince Emeka rushed inside immediately. When he saw Mmesoma crying beside the golden fire, emotion overwhelmed him completely. He pulled her gently into his arms. "You survived," he whispered shakingly. Mmesoma burst into tears against his chest. The chief priest remained kneeling in fear. Suddenly one elderly priest stepped forward angrily. "The gods exposed corruption," he thundered. Everyone looked toward the chief priest. Fear consumed the old man instantly. "The sacred fire revealed manipulation," the elder continued. "Someone attempted to deceive the gods." The crowd gasped loudly. The chief priest's lips trembled uncontrollably, and before everyone, he confessed. Adaure's bribery, the poisoned ritual powder, everything. Shock spread across Oduma kingdom. Adaure was dragged forward screaming desperately. "You all wanted her rejected too," she cried wildly, but nobody defended her. For attempting to corrupt sacred judgment against the gods, Adaure and the chief priest were banished from Oduma forever. And at that moment, the kingdom finally understood something powerful. The gods were not blind to status, not blind to wealth, not blind to beauty. Character mattered more. Truth mattered more. Love mattered more. Days later, Prince Emeka and Mmesoma were joined together before the entire kingdom in the greatest royal wedding Oduma had ever witnessed. Villagers who once mocked Mmesoma now praised her humility. The Queen Mother embraced her warmly, and as Prince Emeka placed the royal beads around Mmesoma's neck, he whispered softly, "I searched the kingdom for a queen." He smiled emotionally. But the gods hid her beside a basket of charcoal. Mmesoma laughed through tears, and for the first time in many years, peace returned to Oduma kingdom, because sometimes the greatest queens are not found in palaces. They are discovered among ordinary people with extraordinary hearts. What lesson did you learn from Prince Emeka and Mmesoma's story? Do you believe true love should be stronger than tradition, even when the entire society stands against it? Subscribe, share this emotional royal drama, and leave your answer in the comments, because sometimes the people we overlook become the greatest blessings of all.